Welcome to episode 6 of North of the Boards, presented by Jackpot City Casino, a hockey podcast that takes you across the NHL and throughout the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm your host, David Pagnotta, and my co-host, as always, Anthony Stewart. Stewie, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
I'm doing well. A little bit upset. There's no real hockey going on right now as it's the Olympic break, but a couple more days. I'm counting down the hours, looking forward to some great Olympic hockey that's upcoming. Yeah. We've been fortunate all season, and then you get a little bit of a break and a few days in between games. Canada's U.S. women's team, Canada's men's team coming up on Thursday. Women are already in action. So, we've been sitting here waiting for a few days to get some stuff going. Look, excited about this show, even though there's no Leafs action. Everybody's on vacay or over at the Olympics. We'll dive into the Maple Leafs here on the program, a number of different topics based on where they're at so far this season. And then we're going to dive into a little bit of Olympic action, talk more about that. Make sure you subscribe, comment, and hit that thumbs up button, and follow us on socials at North of the Boards. Stewie, let's dive into where the Leafs are at this point of the season. They come out or into the break winning 3 straight. Still a lot of work to do and a big hill to climb. Does this break help a lot of the guys to kind of reset and recharge? How do you see them at this point of the season? Yeah, I think it is the breaks at the perfect time, right? They did have some adversity, losing, a bunch of games during their homestand, and they finished off on a high. And what you didn't want to do is go into the break on an 8-game losing streak where everyone's worrying about their job security, if they're getting traded at the deadline. So they sort of did what they needed to do and sort of keeping that outside noise on the outside. But again, we're talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs, where, again, it creeps in the smallest crevice with the rumors with what's going on with the team. So me personally, 6 points out. We've seen crazier things happen in the NHL with teams jumping, into the playoffs, further out. So we know the math. They have to play, near to perfect hockey this final stretch. But what I liked about the last 3 games was it wasn't them coming out spectacular performances by anyone individually. It was a great team effort. Guys were stepping up. They were getting the goaltending. And if that's one thing to hang your hat on, saying, hey, if we get this goaltending, from Stolarz, and Wall for the last stretch here, we're going to make it in here. So I predicted that I think they're going to make it in. We'll see. Yeah. But again, they have some work to do. But going now, having a couple weeks off to get some R&R, I think is going to sort of reset them and coming back and finishing strong. But the good part is they have some younger players that are going to be skating. And, some guys these days only take 2-3 days off. So I expect the McManns and the Cowans and the Robertsons to be working at their craft, including Matthew Nyes, and really hit the ground running when they come back from the break.
The break, yes, it's going to allow for that to kind of reset a little bit. But when you go into the break, January was such a roller coaster, Stewie. Like, they're on a high in the beginning, and then they go home and it's a huge dip down, and they hit the road and they lose again to Seattle. But then they pull off those 3 Ws. How does that roller coaster type of month going into a break like this where you can reset, how much does that impact your ability to properly reset? Is it just a quick, all right, we're just going to toss this behind us and we know what we have to do moving forward? Or from an athlete's side, are you playing mind games with yourself and trying not to overthink and just try to go into this break kind of clean?
Well, the one thing I could tell that's not really measurable, right, is just sort of the mental fatigue that having to come back and you're battling in the third period, or you're blowing a lead and you got to pull the goalie and then you got to go 6-on-5, and just you need easy wins in today's NHL. So a lot of those wins that the Leafs had, especially in regulation or wherever, they were scratching and clawing. Like, it was down to the last minute. Like, how many games could you sit there and say, going into the third period, the Maple Leafs team had it in the bag? And maybe 5, right?
Yeah, right.
I'm trying to think, maybe Utah the first time. Like, again, it's Nashville. It's been so long that I rarely remember that. So when that happens now, you physically can be there game 60 to 80. You're like, you're good. You're riled up. You're ready to go. But then you just hit a wall. And that's why guys are miserable, those last couple of months, because it's just a mental grind in the push. And I always tell the story for me. I was in Atlanta and I had 38 points with about 22 games to go. And I'm sitting there, I'm looking at real estate. I'm going to cash in. I'm going to get 65 points and sign for 3.5. We're all good. We're leaving the hood. and I finished with 1 point in my final 22 games. And I was like, whoa, I did not prepare for that wall. So I could tell you this, if I had a bit of a 2-week reset to sort of get my mind right, my body right, and get away from the game, I'd come back recharged. So I think it's at the perfect time for this Maple Leafs because, yes, they had those 3 losses, but there was a lot going wrong where now they can sort of hit that reset button and come back and play some good hockey. And it's not just the players, the coaches as well, right? We're going to see a scarless, hopefully, Craig Berube with that cut, hopefully healing and no black eyes. And he's going to have some R&R, and it's almost like a quote unquote new season. But the first 2-3 games are definitely critical for them in making the playoffs. Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing too, right? Because like, yes, we have 20 days off or whatever. So everybody's in Cabo right now, basically. Like they're effectively out there, or wherever they're going, but half the league always goes to Cabo. So you've got that period. And then you've got training camp. Everybody's back on the 17th. And you can basically, it's like a mini camp again. So you've got that week off, and then you've got a bit of a mini camp to kind of get going again. How much does that weigh in at all? Because you've got the break, you're not playing games, but you're also kind of in that period where you kind of can just reset stylistically and just get back to the basics, sort of.
Yeah, it's tough. And, I done it in Russia where every month they have a quote unquote national break where you get 4 days off, but you have to come back and do a 2-day training camp. And it's the hardest thing you've ever done. You got to run 5 miles. You got to do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups times 10. But when you miss a significant time, in the NHL, rested, warranted or not, it does take time. So again, I obviously would be in Cabo, but I would be watching what I'm eating. Yes, you have some time to sort of relax, but you're not going crazy as if it's the off season. You got to do it within reason. Yes, you have your root beers, but instead of, 14, you only have 9. And you sort of keep in mind that you got some business to take care of, right? So, the one guys that I'm worried about are the guys coming back from Olympics, because those guys are going to come back from a whole different level, and you're going to see some of these guys really pop off. And I'm expecting someone to have 135, 140 points. Like I think that's how hard they're going to pop off. So you got to be prepared for that. So they're going to have their fun. But again, if I'm the team, it's like, yes, you're going to have a little mini training camp, but you're not doing any skating tests. You're not doing any bike tests because guys are in shape. There's very rarely that guys aren't in shape anymore. You do it within reason because you're going to have a lot of hockey sort of compact in a short period of time. And teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs who are pushing for that playoff spot, you can't just, kill them the first couple of days.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of ease into it after getting the little bit of sun or a break or wherever these guys are. One guy who's not getting much of a break, Willie Nylander. So he's obviously in Milan for the Olympics. But we got word earlier this week that he wasn't practicing with Team Sweden. We know that obviously he was going through some health issues with the Leafs. Now he's not practicing for Team Sweden. How much of a concern is it just where he's at physically? And how much could this potentially impact his ability to impact the team, the Leafs, when things get back in action later on in the month?
So I'll answer your question with a question. How did you know he was off? Like I thought the practices were closed to the public. No one was allowed to watch.
Yeah, that's so weird that this is, I think, the first time they're allowing countries to allow no media or to have no media to watch practices. That's weird.
Yeah, I think it's showing who really has the power here, right? But I think it is a cause for concern, right? And there's been reports that, you're going to see a significant amount of guys that have gone to the Olympics come back and shut themselves down for the year, right? Because, and we know within the Maple Leafs, there were some guys that were hopeful to make it that were playing through some pretty significant injuries in hopes, because it's such a great honor. It's an opportunity you might not have again. So guys are playing hurt. Yep. So there's a difference between playing hurt and playing injured. So for Willie's sake, let's just hope it's a hurt situation, right? Yeah. But I will give him some grace though, because remember, this is a player that's been extremely durable. I think 2 or 3 games he's missed the previous 3 or 4 seasons.
Yep,
so
fair.
he's proven that he's a guy that comes in and plays through pain and goes out there and gives it his all. So I think for him, maybe it's a little bit of maintenance. He did look pretty good in coming back from the previous injury. But if I'm Toronto, I'm holding my breath, right? Let's hope that if he does score, it's just a normal celebration. You're not sort of going on to one edge or hitting a rut or anything along those lines. But
I don't want to pull anything.
For Toronto to make the playoffs, and again, Socials is going to cut this clip, they need William Nylander to be the best player, if not the second best player in the Toronto Maple Leafs. He has to continue to score at an outrageous clip. He's got to be over a point a game, and he can take over games. So that's the tremendous part about him, and the enigma that he is, that he has the ability, playing against Colorado or the Vegas Golden Knights, to be the best player on the ice. They're going to need that from him more often than not if they have a chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah, without question. I mean, the rest for everybody is great, and everyone allowing them to recharge, but you need your best players to be your best players. And Willie Nylander is one of Toronto's best players. The other guy is Auston Matthews. And we know that he's had a bit of a roller coaster of a season as well. Went on that crazy heater when he was healthy again. And then now everyone's wondering, well, how is his health? Named captain of Team USA. You need both those guys. And it's obvious you need your best guys if you want to win. But you're right. If the Leafs are going to get anywhere later this season, it's going to be based on the fact that they've got Willie Nylander and Auston Matthews kind of rolling for them.
Yeah. And, you don't want to stumble. Do you want to stumble into the playoffs and you play Tampa Bay first round and sort of get swept? They need those guys playing. And the thing is, I have a bad memory, but I do remember at the end of the season last year, going into this season, the narrative was they were so disappointed and we're going to correct the wrongs of the past. And right. I don't think they've done that this year. They played some good hockey, but they didn't seem like they were men on a mission where they're coming back. And when we're tied in a game, we're going to elevate or we're going to come back and put the team on our backs. There's been moments of that, but they need to be consistently consistent. Like the Macklin Celebrini. As you watch Celebrini, and Canada's going to have a chance to see him in these Olympics, he jumps out on the page every single shift. You're seeing an 18-year-old Matthew Schaefer do it. You're seeing McKinnon, Makar. You're seeing Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield, right? So those guys are some great, great players. And Matthews and Nylander have the same pedigree. So I think it's more so a mentality, right? And it's easy. Trust me, I've been in a lot of losing dressing rooms in that Southeast division of the mid-2000s. And when going gets tough, guys are looking around like, who's going to be it? And guys are like, it's not me. I'm not the guy, right? And so I think it's you're talking about the quote-unquote legacy piece in Toronto Maple Leafs. And, we're at all those games at home, and you see those banners, the potential from this group that was, with this team the last year or two, there could be 3, potentially 4 guys on those banners. And all it is missing is just that element of going to the next level, not winning a Stanley Cup, but just carrying the team. And if I'm one of those guys, I'm like, you see the respect that a Wendell Clark, that a Doug Gilmour, that a Darcy Tucker, Corson, these guys are legends in the city of Toronto. Yes, we have the big contracts. Yes, your superstars amongst the NHL, but that respect in the biggest hockey market in the world, I'm telling you, that's worth its weight in gold. And if I'm them, that's what I'm striving towards in winning the Stanley Cup, or at least getting as close as possible, leaving it all on the ice. Yeah,
you're right. Those guys didn't win the ultimate prize, but the effort that they put in game after game just showed you the type of player, athlete, and person that they are and were in their playing days. So, if you can get to that point, and I look at this roster and I go, I think Willie can get there. I think Auston can get there. Those top guys. I have a feeling, quite frankly, Matthew Knies is going to be one of those guys. That he's going to be at that level from a fan stardom side of things. I feel like he's got that capability of getting there. Now, I'll give him a bit of grace here because he's only a couple of years or a few years into the NHL. So I think that'll come eventually. But guys like Auston and Willie, they have that. They can get to that point. I'm just kind of waiting for it, like waiting for them to get to that level. And we'll touch more on these guys, obviously as the show progresses here on North of the Boards. There's still a lot of hockey to go and a lot of season to go. But yeah, just getting to that next step would certainly do wonders for them and for the fan base. Stewie, one of the things that became a bigger topic than it probably should be, but is are the pending free agents that this team has. And, when they were losing and going through that rough home stretch and then lost in Seattle, they were 0-5-1-6 games. It was sell. Just blow this up and forget about it. The team's done. And then they went 3 in a row and everybody's like, okay, maybe not just yet. But Bobby McMann, Scott Laughton, specifically, 2 pending unrestricted free agents. They've got a couple others on expiring contracts. If you're Tree, what are you doing with these guys, and how are you going to navigate these next, few weeks going to the trade deadline?
Yeah, well, I'll start with Bobby McMann, and let's have an honest conversation right here. You're looking at the makeup of this roster. You're looking at the players that they went and got in the offseason, right, in Michelli and Dakota Joshua. And you look at the players that have left over the years. Could the Toronto Maple Leafs use those players right now? And I'll start with Zach Hyman.
Yeah.
Michael Bunting.
Yep.
Trevor Moore.
He'd be okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I would even go as far as, hey, you need a PKer with some speed on the wing. And yes, he hasn't done much, but like at the time, maybe a Mikheyev, who knows what he could. So those are the common denominator, and even Bertuzzi.
Yep.
Right.
Look, those guys, Mikheyev's been doing great in Chicago. They're going to try to re-sign him because of what he's doing for that club, because of the two-way style he plays.
Yeah. So the common denominator with all those guys, that they were at a certain cap hit and they were deemed expendable just based on how much money they were supposed to be making on their next contracts. And Toronto did their cost analysis and said, it's not going to be worth it. And ever since, one of those guys, I call it the conveyor belt, the $3.5 million conveyor belt, when a guy is due to make 3.5 or more, and if he's not making the 9 or 10, he's out of there and he's out of town. That's been the issue in sort of filling in those holes. They're trying to fill in the holes with the guys that are, making 1.5 or 1. And again, I love the Lorenzes. I love, the Camps over the years and the Holmbergs, but you need the Bertuzzis. You need these guys that are between $4 and $6 million. There's guys that get you 2, and there's guys that get you through. And my concern is, yes, Bobby McMann, it would be great to go get a first rounder for him, but we've heard the reports. The teams that are in the market for a Bobby McMann do not have a first rounder. So what are you going to do? You're going to get 2 seconds or a third. When's the last time you've developed one of these guys to come in and step up and play in your top 6? So you're going to score, say what you want, consistent, inconsistent, whatever consistent word you want to use at the end of it. He puts up 20 goals a year and he flies up and down the wing. So you get rid of that player. Who are you going to replace him with? Right? You've seen what you've done with the development and Nick Robertson, where I feel, yes, there's injuries, some of it's inconsistent play, but I think he's a minimum 1 year, 2 years behind him where he should be. Yep. You're going to go draft a Robertson. How long is it going to take a player like that to pop? Or you're going to now leave him in the top 6 when he's sort of been up and down the last couple of years? Is it going to be Easton Cowan? So the issue is, unless you have an heir apparent, or you're going to now use that money freed up to go in and bring in a guy that you know exactly who's going to be that guy, I don't think it's going to be Tuck. All right. I don't think you can afford him. You give Bobby McMann, you know what? You stretch it out. You make it 4.75 instead of the $5 million, because you're going to need a guy that does that. So regardless of who you say or how you do the math, you need a guy like that. So if I'm Tree Living, you find a way to get the deal done. I understand Laughton. The one thing about Laughton is just the respect that he gets amongst the dressing room, right? Yeah. You see him when he scores, and you see how he interacts with the Matthews and the Nylanders. He is a big, big piece of that dressing room. So I'm not sure what the money is for him, but if I'm Tree Living, maybe it's a Benoit. Benoit, he's coming up, right? Maybe it is a Benoit, right? He's a guy that can fetch you something too. And, you've seen Stetcher come in and do some good hockey as well. So I think you maybe get rid of some of the auxiliary pieces, but you sign those 2 guys if I'm Tree Living and Co.
You going 5 times 5 for Bobby?
Yes.
Yeah.
The cap's going up. Yep. Right? Years past, yes. You don't know what the cap number is going to be, and there's escrow and all that. Cap's going up. You go 5 times 5, and if he gives you 18 to 25, like you live with that. You live with that because he can play on the top line, as you've shown what he can do. He can keep up with Auston Matthews, or he might be more suitable in a 2-hole, and he can give you what you need on the 3-hole. So the fact that he has some flexibility and durability, I go 5 times 5. Yeah,
and versatility, just based on that. Like he's interchangeable. He can keep up, like you said, he can keep up with the big boys. He can play a sound third line position, and he can roll on that second line if you really need it. And he did that before they augmented and had to change all their lineup. Bobby McMann was playing with John Tavares and Willie Nylander. Then they moved that up. Like, I agree with you. I think this is a position where the Toronto Maple Leafs, they need to keep this caliber player, because especially going into the summer and you look at what's available as a potential UFA. Now Panarin's off because he signed with LA when he got traded there. You've got Alex Tuch, who everyone and their mom is going to want. You've got Nick Schmaltz, who everyone else is going to go after too.
And give him $9 million?
Well, that's exactly it.
Right?
Like you've got these two pieces that are going to command significant dollars, assuming they stay. Like I believe Nick Schmaltz is going to free agency. I don't think he's going to sign and re-sign in Utah. And they said that they were going to push negotiations. They let his camp know that they're going to wait until the offseason to get to it. And they tried trading him last summer. So I think he's going to free agency. Alex Tuch going into the break, him and Buffalo, they weren't close on things there either. So maybe they can figure things out. But Buffalo may hold on to him, may have to give him the money to keep him because of everything going on there. So that might be another guy out. So you look at the market and you look at how the UFA status of some of these guys is going to be. They're not going to be many. So you could say, cool, well, we're going to let Bobby McMann walk because we don't want to give him 5 times 5. We're going to give somebody else $4 million, and he's going to be not even the caliber player that Bobby McMann is and is capable of. And if he's that 20, 25 goal scorer, because I kind of put him in that range, I don't see how you don't sign him. So, and then, yeah, Lawton, $4 million. So like, I think he's making $3 million now altogether. Philly covered half of it, but you're probably in that 3 to 4 range. And with the cap going up, the cap's going up $8.5 million next season. Can you use that 8.5 for those two guys? And then you'll still have room to do a little bit more. That's what they got to figure out. And then it's, you mentioned Michelli and you mentioned Benny and I'll throw Max Domi in that mix. Can you package those guys up to free up some money elsewhere? Is that something you would consider?
Yeah, I would too, right? But, you look at sort of some of the scoring prowess that they're missing on the wings is, what's going on with Morgan Riley, right? You're hearing about him potentially getting packaged and going out west, and that's something that has some precursors with regards to, no movement clauses and all that as well. And that's a guy that I'm sure if it's a failure of a year, quote unquote, he's going to welcome a change of scenery, right? Because we love to dub someone the issue and what the problem is, but he's come in and give a decade of plus of serviceable, serviceable stuff, right? So I think for him, potential, but it's not going to come from the market, right? It's tough to fill too many holes in the, via market. You got to do it via trade, or you got to promote from within. And that's the one thing is on the Marlies, which guy can you sit there and say is going to come up and potentially be a surprise? Steve's, no, he's in Boston.
Boston.
Minton, no, he's in Boston. So again, I don't think the fans want to hear that one, but you got to be calculated on these moves, right? So for me, I think, again, history has proven, right? You get rid of those guys. Those are the guys that you sit there and say you need, right? So no, I don't think it's a Pierre Engvall situation where you got to give him 8 years times 2.9. Right. No, but you find a way to do the math and stretch the money out if you're worried about the actual cap hit. But McMahon, I think, will find success elsewhere, but he's getting his 5 anywhere you dice it. Just like when I was in Atlanta and they said I had 40 points and I had they're like, you weren't doing this, you weren't doing that. I'm like, you can call me whatever you want, but I'm getting paid. I'm getting a pay raise, and that's the same to command. It is what it is. McMahon is getting his money.
We're going to keep this conversation going with the Toronto Maple Leafs here on North of the Boards. Quick break time because it's time for What's Stewin'. Head to jackpotcity.ca and catch your bonus today. Play like a champ and win like a champion. Jackpot City has tons of slot games, massive jackpots, and bonuses that keep you going while we keep the conversation going. Head over to jackpotcity.ca, grab your bonus, and play responsibly.
So I don't particularly have an Olympic break story, but I do have an NHL All-Star break. So I know exactly what it's like to take 2, 3, 4 days off before coming back and trying to resume the season. And it was funny. Right before the break, we were sort of making our plans in the dressing room, and I was planning on going to Jamaica. So I had the reggae music playing, pretending I had a rum punch, and the coach actually walked in. So he wasn't too happy seeing me dance around in the dressing room and whatever. So I think we went on like a 3-game losing streak. And we thought the coast was clear. So we went off into the All-Star break. I think we had 4 full days off. And I'm there on the beach, and I'm eating, 2 or 3 Jamaican beef patties. I have my rum daiquiri, and we get a text. And I'm like, uh-oh. And then literally the food comes out of my mouth. It's from the strength coach. Testing and weigh-in when we get back.
Oh, no. No.
So those that know me, yes, I'm a little bit on the ticker side these days, but I was a guy, regardless, like I had to play at 229 pounds. If I was 230, I'm in the fat club or whatever. But if I took a day off and just, had a sandwich, 6 pounds right away. So I was like probably 12 pounds 3 days into my trip. So what do? I'm looking like Rocky and Apollo Creed on the beach. I'm doing wind sprints. I'm watching what I eat. I'm chugging a whole bunch of water. There was a sauna there. So we ended up getting back, and I think I made weight by probably like 1/4 pound. So, so I was completely dehydrated. But I made it back. I made weight, and I think I ended up being a healthy scratch the first game anyways, but all was well in Florida town once I got back.
Oh man, I can see you you're at the swim up bar or something like that, and all of a sudden, oh no. Yeah. I could just feel everything just fall right out of you. That's amazing. That's great. Well, a lot of these boys are going to have to watch it too, because they get the full week. So it's and
how many days fully? Like, what is it? Is it 10 days off, or is it a full week?
I think it's 10 days because it's 10 days. Players don't report back until the 17th. The last games were on some teams like the Leafs were done on the 2nd. So they've had an even longer stretch. So yeah, boys, if you're watching, easy. Like, take the first few days, go nuts, and then careful, or else
stay off the beef patties.
Yeah. It's amazing. Love these types of stories, Stu. What's Stewin here on North of the Boards? Let's dive back in. So we were just talking about Morgan Rielly beforehand. You brought him up briefly, and I want to touch on him because maybe this is too premature. Maybe this is something that waits for the offseason, but he's got the full no move. And if you're trying to mix this roster around a little bit and give it a bit of a jolt via a big shakeup, I got to imagine Mo's the guy. But he dictates where he wants to go if he goes anywhere because of that no move. So do you have to have that awkward conversation with him at the end of the season? What do you think?
I think, especially if they don't make the playoffs, which I think they're going to, you have to change something, right? And I talked about me playing in the Southeast Division. Like, every year there was 4 players gone just for the sake of doing it. Like, that was sort of the philosophy. You have to switch things up 10, 15, 20%. And, with Toronto, that's got to be the case. And I think for the fact that you can get something for him, right? And, you might have to retain a little bit, but you can get something decent. And I think the way that this roster is heading, you need some defense that can insulate the goaltending a little bit more. And I think for him, tremendous offensive player. He's going to put up his 30 to 50 points every single year. But it just seems at this point of his career, the defensive side, he's really, really struggling. Yeah. So are you going to go out and maybe try to get a Uyghur to insulate him, or do you use him to get a Uyghur or something along those lines? And I think that's sort of the internal discussions that Toronto may be having. But ultimately, if I'm Rielly now, it's like, well, they're sort of putting this on me. Last year it was Marner, now it's me. Like, maybe he's going to welcome that change. And yes, there's the full no movement, but Panarin had one. He's gone. Didn't Trouba have one? And, they've made multiple moves over the last calendar year of guys that had full no movements. So the ways of getting it done. But I'll tell you this. The one thing is that, you talk about Toronto, they're very, very professional. Friends of mine that have played for the organizations, they don't put the clamps on you. They don't jam you up. They honor sort of what they've given you. So they'll have the conversation. But if you say, hey, you know what? I kindly don't oblige, they'll leave it. They're not going to pressure you or mess with your ice time or say, hey, you know what, you're going to be in the press box. So very respectful on the business side for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But if I'm him, it's like, you know what, how many more years do I have? Like, you know, maybe I go out west to San Jose and play the Celebrini, where I can go out there and play free. And, you know, maybe they'll put me with a guy that, you know, Dickinson or someone like that, that's going to insulate my game. So I think it's a win-win on both sides. But right now, like, you know, you're looking at some of the analytics, and I'm not an analytics guy. The eye test is telling me he's struggling on the D side of the puck, but that's the team as a whole. But if this is going in a new direction, a new DNA, that's a guy that you 100% consider moving off of.
Yeah. I agree. And I think that's going to be something in the summer, or, you know, as early as mid-April, hopefully not. But, you know, at that point, once this season ends, unless you're going on a heater and you're on some crazy run, even if you make the playoffs and you're out in the first round, I think you have to have that conversation again with them. And yeah, maybe it is back out west. You're closer to home from Vancouver. Obviously, the Canucks aren't going to be an option, but you know, do you look at some of the other ones that are closer, you know, to that side of it? So I think that's something.
Do a Seattle for Shane Wright, maybe.
Well, yeah, there you go. I mean, yeah, right. There's like they're looking to bring in some impact additions. Seattle's what, 2 hours away, 2.5, 2 hour drive. Like you've got, there's options there, and they're trying to move out right, like you said, to bring in some impact additions on that roster. And Jamie Alexiak's a free agent. That's a player that Toronto could use. Physical, you know, stay at home kind of guy. Go out and pursue him in the summer if you can move off of Mo. But yeah, I think that's probably something that's more geared for the summer, and then, you know, they figure that out, or the off season, whatever you want to call it, and then kind of figure it out from there. Now, with all this said, whether it's, you know, signing Bobby McMann to a deal, or dealing Morgan Riley, or making other types of changes, one area that seems to be pretty solid, and you touched on this earlier, Stu, is goaltending. Stolar's back, doing well. Joe's back in the mix. Wall, he's solid. You know, Hildeby came in and held the fort down when he needed to. Was probably the best one. But there's no concerns on goaltending, I would imagine. And what do the Leafs do now moving forward? I mean, obviously we got to wait to see how the season plays out. But now you've got Stolarz, you've got Wall, you effectively have Hildeby just kind of waiting in the wings. They're now in a position of strength at that point. I don't know. I don't think anything happens now before the trade deadline. But can you see them doing something in goal going into the summer, or how would you play this out?
Well, I think you obviously ride the season out, right? The best ability is availability, and that was sort of been the issue between the two majority of the year. But you see, when both are healthy, both are contributing members of the Toronto Maple Leafs, they are elite, right? And that was sort of what made Toronto be where they were last year, them playing at such a high level that they dragged them into getting a bunch of wins and, you know, playing at such a high level. So for me, you keep both, I think, obviously for this season, but that's something going into the off season. DNA, right? DNA is not just taking a strand of hair and, you know, switching it. It is, you got to make something big happen, right? Yeah. So I think you maybe go with the younger goaltender. Stolarz has the cost certainty, as, you know, he signed his extension this year. And that's a guy that you potentially move off of, because if you go with two guys that have some injury histories and availability issues, who do you go with? You probably go with the younger guy. So I could see that being Joseph Woll, and you ride with him and Hildeby. So Stolarz, again, he can solve a lot of problems in today's NHL, right? If he was made available, I believe there'd probably be 5, 6, 7 teams that'd be lining up to get a player like him to come in as potentially a 1A, 1B. But again, ultimately, he's got to stay healthy. So I think him playing at a high level, and, you know, maybe they go off and potentially just miss the playoffs, and, you know, he's still playing at such a high level, there's going to be a lot of interest there too. So I think a lot of happens between now and then, but them staying healthy is going to be key for, you know, long-term and short-term success in Toronto. But also, if they're going to be quote unquote off the island, their value staying high, it's depending on how they play.
Just throwing this out there because I just thought of it this second. Pittsburgh has Stuart Skinner as a pending free agent. We know there's a little bit of history with Joseph Woll and Kyle Dubas. Maybe that's a pull. Maybe the Leafs, maybe the Pens go in that direction and say, hey, What do you say about something here? I don't know what the fit
if you're
is.
tree living and Dubas calls, do not just hang up.
I know. Maybe.
There's nothing good that comes of this, especially on the PR side, right?
No.
Especially Boston. Lose my number. Don't call me again, right?
That's blocked.
That's
Sweeney's number's just blocked. That's a good point.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think, again, what does this group need? And everyone call it, and the new viewers and listeners here, but I said a couple years ago, this was back then, Kapanen playing well, you elevate him to a top 6 role, and you use Nylander, who had his trade demands at the time. You trade him at the time, and you bring in a legitimate number 1 right shot defenseman. I think at the time I was talking about potentially maybe Doughty or a Justin Falk or something along those lines. I don't remember, but they need a right shot defenseman. You need a right shot defenseman that's between, I would say, 24 and 26 years old, that is injury free, that you can depend on for the next 5-6 years. So where do you get them? I'm not too sure, but again, you do have some assets if you're willing to part ways with them.
Yeah, Leafs are in a very interesting position because it's a buyers/sellers mentality. There's no clear path right now for the Leafs. And if you're Tree, you're looking at this going, this is a tough way to navigate.
Would you want his job? You want his job?
No, absolutely not.
I see all those guys in the press box I would not want the stress of that job of just what's on the line in this market. It's tough. It's tough.
I mean, you played, I see all the stuff that happens kind of behind the scenes. You've got that much more experience times 50. And now you see it, like you just said, in the press box. We're sitting there and we've got management behind us, scout and some of the coaches behind us as well. And to build a team that in the market like this, man, there's a different level of stress that kind of comes with it that I don't think a lot of people anticipate when they first get a gig with the Leafs, is just how much that outside noise can creep in. And then you're sitting here going, I got to do what's best for the team. I have to do what's best. But these fans are going nuts and driving me crazy. How do I keep everybody happy? And you probably can't. So you just kind of have to stick to your guns, to whatever your plan is, and kind of roll with it. So we'll see, Stu. We'll see what the Leafs end up doing here. There's still, there's nothing preventing teams and GMs from still talking during the break. I still think everyone's going to kind of chill this week. And then next week is when conversations are going to pick up. But yeah, not an enviable, I should say, position for Treliving and Pilgrim and Doan and everybody that's kind of, there trying to fix this and get this team rolling in the right direction. But we'll chat more about this later on in the week with Sean Bell as well coming up later. Stewie, you and I will do this again next week. But before we bolt here, we got the Olympics. And let's touch on this a little bit, at least from Canada's side. They put the lines out this week, and we know that Canada and Czechia will play in the first preliminary game, their first preliminary game, I should say, Thursday. McKinnon is now with, I believe, if I saw this correctly, it was Marchand and Suzuki. Suzuki kind of taking that position of where Braden Point was going to be. How do you like how the Canada's kind of structured their lineup right now?
Yeah, I like it because you have balance, right? And that's sort of where I think they have the advantage over the other teams is, yes, you might be able to shut down a McDavid, but can you do it 3 times in a row with McDavid, then McKinnon, then Crosby, who's on the third line, right? Yeah. So that's a deadly 3-man unit coming down 1, 2, 3. And I just wanted to touch maybe on Tom Wilson, right? And I could tell you about Tom Wilson and why he's up there and why he's on this team is because he has the same killer instinct approach and mentality as McDavid, as Crosby, as McKinnon, and now Celebrini. Celebrini was sort of anointed just based on his work ethic and invited into those training groups. And I'm telling you, Wilson is the cut of the same ilk. He came in as a 4th-line guy that was a fighter that came in and ran guys, and he worked on every facet of his game. I'll tell you this, he's in the gym with the the Tyler Sagans and, the Wyatt Johnsons, and there's 15, 20 NHL guys, and there's not many guys. I can't name one or two that outwork him. He is the hardest worker in the gym, on the ice. I go on the ice, I do a couple drills. If he doesn't like the drill or he doesn't like the flow, he'll come in and be like, Stewie, switch the drill. Or if he doesn't like one of his teammates, how they're working, hey, either work or get off the ice. And this is in July, the first week. So once guys catch wind of that, they're like, hey, this is a guy that's a difference maker. So I like the balance. But the one thing we can all agree on, that's when it's all said and done, there's probably going to be some interchanging, guys moving up, guys moving down, guys moving out. But for the first preliminary roster, I like it.
Yeah. Celebrini, McDavid, and Tom Wilson on that right side provides just that extra. I don't want to say protection per se, but you've got the guy that can go into the corners. You've got the guy who's going to do the dirty work, and you've got a guy who can keep up and finish. And to do all of that coupled with the work ethic that he brings, I liked it. As soon as he was named to the team, I thought, are they going to put him up top? Like, that wouldn't shock me at all if they put him in that position. And I think that was one of the reasons why Sam Bennett wasn't initially named to the team, because obviously you add some pieces. You mentioned Celebrini, there's Suzuki now and others. But that formation, and then Marchand, McKinnon, Suzuki, and then Stone moving to the left side, which I didn't anticipate, but Stone on the left, and then you've got Sid in the middle and Mitch Marner on the right. That's an interesting, you said it, balanced attack. Reading some of the reports and some of the tweets and whatnot in the first practice, Jordan Binnington apparently looked dialed in, was totally different than what everyone had seen from him in the season, just a practice. But, if goaltending's dialed in, if Binner can hold the fort down, and then you've got the depth and the balance up front, I guess the focal point, Stu's got to be on that back end, right? Can the D hold it together? Like, I don't think there's anybody questioning that the U.S. has just a stacked D-core, but can Canada's maintain a certain level of performance and stability back there to help out, to allow the other areas of their roster to just potentially dominate?
Yeah, and I think it starts with Makar, right? And this is the guy that's a puck possession and breakout machine and a demon with that puck. So I think the expectation is that Toronto, that the Team Canada is going to be in the offensive zone majority of the time, but they do have some guys that can defend in the Sanheims and Morrissey, who's an elite defender as well. You're seeing Sanheim and all these other guys. So I think for Canada, it's going to come down to, I believe, the goaltending, but I think they're going to be on the offensive side of the puck majority of the time. And remember, McDavid's and these guys, they skate, they push the pace, they know how to play defense. They can play defense if they lock down. So my one concern is there going to be a squeaker. Is it going to be 2-2 going into the third? Does a squeaker go in? Oh, no. But the one thing I can tell you about Binnington and some of these goalies, when the game is on the line, they take their game to another level, where we've seen some of the other goaltenders throughout the league that are on different teams, on some of these favorites, that third period, they crumble, and they crumble heavy. They've done it in the playoffs. They've done it in the regular season. They've done it on the international level, where a goaltender like Binnington has elevated. So I like their chances, but for me, just with that offensive firepower in that two-way game, I think they're going to be lapping the field majority of the games.
All right, the Olympics are going to get underway on the men's side. Women already going. Stu, let's give a quick prediction here. How do you think this is going to follow? Gold medal, silver, bronze?
For the men?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm going gold, Canada, silver, US, bronze, Finland.
Ooh, okay. Nice. I got similar. I got Canada, gold, US, bronze. I'm going Sweden for bronze. So the Finns hate me. The Swedes don't like you based on this. Should we do a women's one? Let's do a women's one as well. Let's go. How do you think the final is going to play out and gold medal, bronze?
Well, I just heard the news. I think Marie-Philippe Poulin is out right now. So I'm going to go USA gold. I'll give it to them for once. Yeah. I'll go gold, silver, Canada. And then is it Czechia? Czechia bronze.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the same for me. US, Canada, and Czechia. I think it'll be over. I think the Swiss are going to be right in the mix on that one. Surprise a little bit.
Great goaltending. Great goaltending on the Swiss.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, this has been great. The Olympic action going to continue. We're going to continue north of the boards here later on in the week. Myself, Sean Bell is going to jump back in with us. So make sure you subscribe to North of the Boards on YouTube. Smash that up button. Leave your comments as well below in the video. We'll get to your comments at some point later on in the show as the weeks kind of continue. In our mailbag segment, make sure to follow us on all social platforms, on Instagram, on TikTok, at North of the Boards. For Anthony Stewart, I'm Dave Pagnotta. We will catch you later on this week with Belsey.